The waitress was humiliated by the manager at a luxury restaurant, and the millionaire saw her ring, the same one he gave his beloved before she vanished 26 years ago. The elegant chandelier of Le Ciel restaurant cast a warm glow over pristine white tablecloths and gleaming silverware. Located in the heart of Chicago's financial district, it was where the city's elite came to see and be seen. Linda Parker moved efficiently between tables, her worn shoes silent against the plush carpet. At 42, her face showed lines of a hard life, but her eyes remained kind despite everything. "Table 7 needs their check, and for God's sake, smile more," Mark Thornton hissed as he passed her. The restaurant manager was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that cost more than Linda made in a month. "The Henderson party just arrived. They're friends of my family, so don't screw this up." Linda nodded, keeping her expression neutral. In 5 years working at Le Ciel, she'd learned that responding to Mark only invited more criticism. His contempt for her was as predictable as his slicked-back hair, and the cruel twist of his lips when no customers were looking. Tonight was busier than usual. A private event occupied half the restaurant. Some corporate celebration Linda had gathered from snippets of conversation, men in expensive suits and women dripping with jewelry, laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. It was a world apart from her small apartment where her niece Olivia was likely hunched over textbooks. Working toward a future Linda had never had a chance at. "Just 3 more hours," she whispered to herself, picturing Olivia's face. Everything she did, the double shifts, the humiliation, the aching feet, was for her brilliant niece, who deserved every opportunity Linda could provide. She approached the Henderson table with practiced grace. "Good evening, may I start you with some drinks?" The next hour passed in a blur of orders and forced smiles. Linda was clearing glasses from a recently vacated table when she noticed him, a distinguished man sitting alone, observing the room with quiet intensity, Thomas Sinclair. She recognized him from the financial magazines Olivia sometimes brought home. Unlike the other executives who demanded attention with loud voices, his power was understated, carried in the confident set of his shoulders and the thoughtful lines around his eyes. Mark materialized at her side, jolting her from her observations. "Mr. Sinclair requested a bottle of the 1982 Bordeaux. Don't drop it. It costs more than you make in a year." Linda took the wine with steady hands. She'd been a waitress long enough to know how to serve expensive bottles, despite Mark's constant implications that she was somehow less capable because of her background. As she approached Thomas Sinclair's table, she felt his gaze assess her, not unkindly, but with curiosity. "Mr. Sinclair," she said quietly, presenting the bottle. He nodded, a courteous smile warming his features. "Thank you." Linda proceeded with the ritual of opening and serving the wine. As she poured, a commotion erupted from the corporate party. Someone had knocked over a centerpiece, and Mark was already rushing over, profuse apologies flowing from his lips. The distraction was momentary, but enough for Linda's concentration to falter. The wine sloshed too quickly, a few drops escaping onto the pristine tablecloth. It wasn't a disaster, barely noticeable, but Mark, returning from the other crisis, spotted it immediately. "I apologize for the incompetence," he said loudly to Thomas, shooting Linda a venomous look. "Linda, perhaps you should stick to serving water, or better yet, clearing dishes." The restaurant didn't quite fall silent, but conversations nearby definitely hushed. Linda felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "It's nothing," Thomas said firmly, looking directly at Mark. "Hardly worth mentioning." But Mark wasn't finished. "This isn't the first time she's shown this level of carelessness. I've been too lenient. Perhaps it's time to reconsider your position here." "Linda?" Linda bent to clean the small spill, her hands trembling slightly now. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thornton. It won't happen again." "See that it doesn't," Mark replied, his voice dripping with disdain before he walked away, leaving Linda to finish cleaning as she leaned forward. The silver chain she always wore around her neck slipped out from beneath her uniform. At the end of it, catching the light, hung a delicate emerald ring. Thomas Sinclair's sharp intake of breath was audible. His eyes widened, fixed on the piece of jewelry as though he'd seen a ghost. Linda quickly tucked the ring back beneath her collar, but it was too late. She'd seen his reaction. And somehow she knew this wasn't just about a spilled drop of wine anymore. "That ring," Thomas said, his voice suddenly hoarse. "May I ask where you got it?" Linda's hand instinctively went to her chest, feeling the outline of the ring beneath the fabric. It's a family heirloom. I see. His voice was controlled now, but his eyes betrayed him. A storm of emotions she couldn't quite identify. It reminded me of something, that's all. Linda nodded and finished cleaning. But as she turned to leave, he spoke again. Wait, please. Could I trouble you for just a moment of your time? When your shift ends, perhaps? She hesitated. In all her years of service, she'd developed an instinct about people. Some customers who asked to speak with her had unsavory intentions. But Thomas Sinclair's request felt different. Urgent. Almost desperate behind his composed exterior. I finish at 11, she finally said. I'll wait, he replied simply. For the remainder of her shift, Linda felt his gaze following her. Not in the predatory way some men watched waitresses, but with a strange mixture of hope and fear. The ring felt heavier against her skin, as though it had suddenly gained significance beyond being her most treasured possession. At 11, after changing out of her uniform, Linda found Thomas waiting in the now empty restaurant. Mark had left earlier, much to her relief. Thank you for staying, Thomas said, gesturing to a seat across from him. Linda sat cautiously. What is this about, Mr. Sinclair? That emerald ring you wear, he began, his voice steady but intense. I need to know how you came to possess it. Linda's fingers went to her neck again, protective. Why does it matter to you? Because 26 years ago, I gave an identical ring to someone I loved very much. Someone who disappeared without a trace shortly after. His eyes held hers. Her name was Claire. The blood drained from Linda's face. She hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in years, not since she'd started calling her my sister in the vague terms people used to discuss the dead. Claire, she repeated, the name like dust on her tongue. You knew my sister. Now it was Thomas who looked shocked. Claire was your sister? Linda nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of secrets long buried. She disappeared 26 years ago, yes. But she came back, briefly, about a year later. She came back. The hope in his voice was palpable. Just for one night, she gave me this ring and... Linda paused, uncertain how much to reveal to this stranger whose life seemed mysteriously intertwined with hers. She wasn't alone. What do you mean? Linda took a deep breath. She had a baby with her, a newborn girl. She looked directly into Thomas's eyes. My niece, Olivia. Thomas Sinclair's hands gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles turning white. And Claire, what happened to her after that night? She said she had to go back, that it wasn't safe. Linda's voice cracked slightly. We found her body 3 days later. At least, that's what the authorities told us. I never saw her again after that night. The silence between them hummed with unspoken questions. Finally, Thomas spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I think we have a lot more to discuss, Linda, because I don't believe Claire is dead, and I'm beginning to suspect that your niece Olivia might actually be my daughter. Thomas Sinclair sat in his office on the 38th floor of the Sinclair Tower. Staring at the black and white photograph on his desk, it showed a young woman with windswept hair laughing at the camera, her eyes bright with life. Claire. His fingers traced the edge of the frame, a ritual he'd performed countless times over the past 26 years. Mr. Sinclair, your 11 o'clock is here. His assistant's voice came through the intercom, pulling him back to the present. Send them in 5 minutes, Diane, he replied, carefully returning the photograph to its drawer. Thomas turned to his computer where a background check on Linda Parker filled the screen. Nothing suspicious. Just the unremarkable history of a woman who'd worked hard her entire life. Born in a small town outside Chicago, worked various service jobs since she was 16. No criminal record. The only unusual aspect was becoming the guardian of her niece at just 17. The report confirmed what Linda had told him at the restaurant 2 nights ago. A knock at the door announced the arrival of David Hayes. The private investigator Thomas had contacted immediately after his conversation with Linda. What did you find? Thomas asked without preamble. Hayes placed a folder on the desk. Not much on the official records about Claire Parker's death. There was a police report filed, but it's suspiciously thin. The body was identified by a second cousin, not the sister, which is odd. No autopsy was performed. The cause of death was listed as accidental drowning. That doesn't make sense. Thomas leaned forward. Claire was an excellent swimmer. Exactly why I kept digging. Hayes tapped the folder. The medical examiner who signed off on the death certificate retired immediately afterward. Moved to Florida with a suddenly robust bank account. Thomas's jaw tightened. Someone paid him off. It gets more interesting, Hayes continued. Around the time Claire disappeared, Walter Thornton's company was trying to acquire the same tech startup you were pursuing, Thornton Technologies, Thomas murmured. Walter's company was our biggest competitor back then. The acquisition would have been worth millions, and you beat him to it. Thomas's mind flashed back to that time. He was 23, hungry, and building his empire. The acquisition of Neurotech had been his first major victory, the foundation of his current wealth. Walter Thornton had been livid, threatening to destroy him in a very public confrontation at a business gala. 2 weeks later, Claire had disappeared. You think Walter Thornton had something to do with Claire's disappearance? Thomas asked, the pieces beginning to align in his mind. Hayes shrugged. I'm just pointing out the timing. Walter Thornton died 3 years ago, but his sons still run the company, Mark and Scott, though Scott died in a car accident 5 years back. Mark Thornton, Thomas repeated. The same Mark Thornton who manages Le Ciel restaurant where Linda works. Bingo, Thomas stood, walking to the window that overlooked the Chicago skyline. What about Olivia? Could she be my daughter? Based on the timeline, it's possible, but you'll need DNA to be certain. Thomas nodded, his reflection grim in the glass. Arrange it? After Hayes left, Thomas allowed himself to sink back into memories. He'd been young, ambitious, and madly in love with Claire, a brilliant art history student who'd captured his heart with her passionate views on life and art. They'd been opposites in many ways. He was calculated and focused, while she was spontaneous and free-spirited. But together, they'd been perfect. The emerald ring had been impulsive, extravagant, a promise of the future they would build together. She'd cried when he gave it to her, whispering, "It's too beautiful," but he insisted nothing could match her eyes. A week later, she vanished without a trace. Thomas had hired investigators, offered rewards, searched tirelessly, but eventually, even he had to move on. He'd married Melissa 10 years ago, more out of companionship than passion. They had Nicholas, now 17, who was the spitting image of Thomas at that age. Brilliant, but restless. The thought that Claire might have been alive all this time, that she might have given birth to his child, was both exhilarating and devastating. What had happened to her? And if Linda's story was true, if Claire had been found dead days after delivering Olivia, who was the woman Mark Thornton kept hidden away? In a modest apartment across town, Linda sat at her kitchen table, the emerald ring laid out before her. Next to it was a faded photograph of 2 teenage girls with their arms around each other. Linda at 15 and Claire at 17. "You always said this ring would bring you back to me," Linda whispered to the image of her sister. "I never thought it would be like this." The sound of a key in the lock made her quickly tuck away the photograph and slip the ring back onto its chain. "Aunt Linda, I'm home." Olivia entered with an armful of textbooks, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun. She dropped her backpack by the door and collapsed into a chair. "Professor Jenkins is trying to kill us with these assignments." Linda smiled at her niece. Or was it her daughter? The question of Olivia's parentage had never been in doubt before. But Thomas Sinclair's appearance had shaken everything she thought she knew. "Tea," Linda offered, rising to fill the kettle. Olivia nodded gratefully. "You're home early. No double shift tonight." "I switched with Denise." Linda kept her voice casual. "Actually, I was thinking we could talk." "Sounds serious." Olivia looked up. Her green eyes, Claire's eyes, suddenly concerned. Linda hesitated. How could she possibly tell Olivia that the man she'd believed was her father, a nameless, faceless figure who'd supposedly abandoned Claire, might actually be one of Chicago's wealthiest businessmen, that the aunt who raised her might have been keeping secrets all these years? "It's nothing," Linda lied, setting the tea in front of Olivia. "Just work stuff." Olivia didn't seem convinced, but returned to her books. Linda watched her, seeing Claire in the curve of her cheek, the intensity of her focus. But there was something else too, a determined set to her jaw that reminded Linda startlingly of Thomas Sinclair. At Le Ciel restaurant, Mark Thornton closed the office door and made a call. "Mother, It's me. His voice was tight with tension. We have a problem. Thomas Sinclair was here the other night, talking to one of my waitresses. He listened for a moment, his frown deepening. No, not just any waitress. Linda Parker. Another pause. Yes, that Linda Parker. And he saw the ring. Mark ran a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. I think he's making connections we can't afford. He listened again, his expression hardening. I understand the family reputation is at stake. I'll handle it. His eyes drifted to a photograph on his desk. A younger version of himself standing beside his father, Walter, and his brother Scott. I won't let father's work be undone. As he hung up, Mark opened his desk drawer and pulled out a file labeled Maria. Inside was a photograph of a middle-aged woman with vacant eyes, sitting in a garden. Her face, though lined and hollow, bore a striking resemblance to the woman from Thomas Sinclair's desk photograph. Time to move you somewhere more secure, Mark murmured, closing the file. Can't have Sinclair getting too close. He made another call, this time to the estate outside the city. Double her medication, and no visitors. Not even Dr. Reynolds. No one sees her until I say so. I appreciate you agreeing to meet me. Linda. Thomas smiled as he settled into the booth at the small diner. Far from Chicago's upscale restaurants, he'd suggested this place precisely because Mark Thornton would never set foot here. Linda nodded, clutching her coffee mug. You said it was important. It is. Thomas slid a folder across the table. I've been doing some research since our conversation last week. She opened it hesitantly, eyes widening at the documents inside. Newspaper clippings about Claire's supposed death. Financial records showing unusual transfers from Thornton Technologies around that time, and most disturbing, redacted police reports. What is all this? Evidence that your sister's death wasn't what it appeared to be. Thomas leaned forward. The medical examiner who signed her death certificate received a substantial payment from a shell company linked to Walter Thornton. Linda's hands trembled. Are you saying my sister's death was faked? I'm saying it's possible Claire is still alive. The mug nearly slipped from Linda's grip. But I identified her body. Thomas tilted his head. Did you? The official record shows a second cousin made the identification. That's not right. Linda shook her head adamantly. I never saw her body. They told me it was too damaged, that a distant relative had already confirmed it was Claire. Thomas's expression hardened. They lied to you. Linda stared into her coffee, memories crashing through her mind. The police officers' averted eyes, the vague details about where they'd found Claire, the suspicious speed with which they'd closed the case. At 17, grieving and suddenly responsible for an infant, she hadn't questioned anything. Why would anyone do this? She whispered. I believe Walter Thornton orchestrated Claire's disappearance to punish me for a business deal. He didn't know she was pregnant. Thomas's voice grew gentle. Linda, I need to ask you something difficult. Would you and Olivia consider DNA testing? She looked up sharply. You really think you're her father? I think we both deserve to know the truth. Linda thought of Olivia. Brilliant, determined Olivia who'd always ask questions about her parents that Linda couldn't fully answer. I'll talk to her. Thank you. Thomas pulled out a business card and wrote on the back, This is my personal number, and I want to help with Olivia's education expenses. We don't need your charity, Linda said reflexively. It's not charity. If Olivia is my daughter, I've missed 25 years of supporting her. Let me start now, regardless of what the tests show. Linda hesitated before taking the card. I'll think about it. As they parted ways outside the diner, neither noticed the black sedan parked across the street, its driver lowering a camera with a telephoto lens. She's perfect, Melissa Sinclair declared, examining the marble countertop samples spread across their kitchen island. This one for the vacation house. Thomas nodded absently, his mind still on his meeting with Linda. Melissa's perfectly manicured hand touched his arm. Thomas, you haven't heard a word I've said all evening. Sorry. He forced himself to focus on his wife. After 10 years of marriage, he could read the subtle signs of her annoyance. The slight tightening around her eyes, the stiffening of her posture. It's work, he offered vaguely. It's always work, she sighed, collecting the samples. Nicholas called. He's staying at Jake's tonight to work on their science project. The mention of their son sent a pang through Thomas. How would Nicholas react to potentially having a half-sister? The boy was already struggling with typical teenage turbulence, their relationship strained by Thomas's demanding schedule. "Is something wrong?" Melissa asked, studying his face. "You've been distracted for days." Thomas considered telling her everything but hesitated. Their marriage had always been more practical than passionate, a merger of compatible life goals rather than consuming love. She'd been his emotional anchor after years of fruitless searching for Claire, offering stability and companionship. She deserved better than half-truths. "I've recently encountered someone from my past," he said carefully. "It's brought up some unexpected complications." Melissa's expression froze. "Someone. A woman. It's not what you're thinking," he sighed. "It's about Claire." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Claire's ghost had always hovered at the edges of their marriage, never discussed but always present. "Claire is dead, Thomas." Melissa's voice was flat. "Whatever you think you've discovered, don't let it drag you back into that obsession. It nearly destroyed you once. This is different. There's evidence. There's always evidence when you want to believe something badly enough." She gathered her things. "I'm going to bed. Don't stay up too late chasing ghosts." As she left, Thomas wondered if she was right. Was he setting himself up for another devastating disappointment? But the emerald ring wasn't something he could ignore. Neither was the timing of Claire's disappearance, nor Walter Thornton's suspicious activities. And then there was Olivia, a brilliant young woman with Claire's eyes and, perhaps his blood, in the Thornton estate outside Chicago. Dr. James Reynolds frowned at the medication chart. "These dosages are significantly higher than what I prescribed." The nurse avoided his gaze. "Mr. Thornton's orders." "I'm her physician. My orders supersede his." Reynolds removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. At 72, he'd spent the last 25 years caring for Maria, watching a vibrant young woman transformed into a shell through medication and isolation. "He said no exceptions, doctor." Reynolds nodded stiffly. "I understand. I'd like to see her anyway." The nurse led him through the east wing to a sunlit room decorated in soft blues. Maria sat in a wingback chair, gazing at the garden outside. Her dark hair, now streaked with gray, was neatly brushed, her thin frame wrapped in an expensive cardigan. "Maria, it's Dr. Reynolds," he spoke gently, taking the seat opposite her. Her eyes, once vibrant green, now dulled by medication, slowly focused on him. "Doctor, how are you feeling today?" She gave a vague smile. "The flowers are nice." Reynolds had conducted this same exchange hundreds of times over the years. Early on, Walter Thornton had convinced him that Maria suffered from severe schizophrenia, that her medication prevented dangerous episodes. He'd believed it, until discovering Walter's journal 5 years ago after the man's death. The truth had horrified him. Maria wasn't Maria at all. She was Claire Parker, kidnapped and drugged into compliance. Her real identity erased through trauma and chemicals. By then, Reynolds was too complicit, too afraid of prosecution to come forward. But Walter was dead now. Scott, too. Only Mark remained, carrying on his father's deception. Though Reynolds suspected the younger Thornton didn't know the full story, just that Maria was important and needed to be kept isolated. "Would you like to walk in the garden today?" he asked. She nodded slowly, as he helped her up. He discreetly slipped 2 of her pills into his pocket, a small act of rebellion, but perhaps enough to gradually clear her mind. After 25 years of complicity, it was time to atone. Mark Thornton slammed the surveillance photos onto his desk. "Thomas Sinclair is meeting with Linda Parker. This goes beyond coincidence." His mother's voice crackled through the speakerphone. "Your father always said Sinclair was tenacious. If he's connecting dots about Claire after all these years, we need to be careful. I'll increase security at the estate." "That's not enough. You need to distance Parker from Sinclair." Mark tapped his fingers thoughtfully. "I could fire her, create a reason she'd have to leave Chicago." "No, that might make Sinclair more suspicious. Keep her close, but watched." "And the girl, Olivia." A heavy pause. "If she's Claire's daughter, she could be legally entitled to Sinclair's fortune. That would make her very dangerous to us. Find out what she knows." Mark ended the call, staring at the photo of Linda and Thomas deep in conversation. Everything his father had built, the family's reputation and wealth, hinged on keeping certain secrets buried. He wouldn't be the one to let it all unravel. Not when they'd already come so far. "So this is Sinclair Tower," Olivia said, gazing up at the gleaming skyscraper that dominated Chicago's skyline. "Pretty impressive for a guy who might be my dad." Linda winced at her niece's bluntness. "Olivia, we don't know that yet. That's why we're here." "Right, for the DNA test." Olivia's voice was carefully neutral, but Linda detected the undercurrent of anxiety. They'd spent the past week processing Thomas's bombshell revelation, with Olivia cycling through shock, anger, and cautious curiosity. The security guard directed them to a private elevator. As they ascended to the 38th floor, Linda's stomach knotted with apprehension. Was she doing the right thing? For 25 years, she'd protected Olivia, making decisions she believed were in the girl's best interest. Now, she was potentially upending everything. The elevator doors opened directly into a tasteful reception area. Thomas was waiting, his expression both hopeful and nervous. "Thank you for coming," he said, extending his hand first to Linda, then to Olivia. "You must be Olivia. It's wonderful to meet you." Olivia studied him with undisguised curiosity. "Nice office, very Gordon Gekko," Thomas laughed, genuine warmth breaking through his professional veneer. "I prefer to think I'm less villainous, but the comparison isn't entirely unfair." Linda watched their interaction with a strange mixture of emotions. There was something undeniable in the way they stood. The same confident posture, the same analytical gaze. Even their laugh sounded eerily similar. How had she never noticed these similarities before? "The doctor is waiting in the conference room," Thomas said, gesturing down a hallway. "He'll explain the process and take cheek swabs. It's completely painless." Olivia nodded, surprisingly composed. "Let's get this over with then." The procedure was quick and clinical. Dr. Werner, a distinguished geneticist from Northwestern University, explained that results would be available within 48 hours due to Thomas's request for expedited processing. "Would you join me for lunch afterward?" Thomas asked as the doctor packed up his kit. "No pressure, but I thought we might get to know each other a bit." Linda and Olivia exchanged glances. "That would be nice," Olivia answered, before Linda could formulate a response. Thomas led them to a private dining room, where an elegant lunch had been arranged. As they settled in, silence fell over the table. "This is weird, right?" Olivia finally said. "I mean, we're sitting here acting normal, but this is completely insane." Thomas's lips quirked. "Completely insane," he agreed. "I've imagined meeting Claire's family many times, but never quite like this." "Tell me about her," Olivia requested suddenly. "My mom, Aunt Linda, has told me stories, but you knew her differently." Thomas's expression softened. "Claire was the most alive person I've ever known. She studied art history but could talk about anything. Politics, science, philosophy. She painted, though she claimed she wasn't very good." He smiled at a distant memory. "She was brilliant at seeing connections that others missed." "That sounds like you," Linda said to Olivia, who blushed slightly. "She had this laugh," Thomas continued. "It wasn't delicate or polite. It was full and uninhibited. She didn't care what people thought." "I wish I could remember her," Olivia said quietly. An awkward silence fell again, broken by Thomas. "Tell me about yourself, Olivia." Linda mentioned you're studying at the university. Olivia nodded, her face lighting up. "Double major in computer science and linguistics. I'm working on an algorithm that analyzes linguistic patterns to identify potential translation errors in ancient texts." Thomas leaned forward, clearly intrigued. "That combines computational linguistics with historical analysis. Brilliant concept." "It's still primitive," Olivia admitted. "The processing power required is enormous, and I can only access the university computers during limited hours. I might be able to help with that. Sinclair Tech has a quantum computing division that could—" "Thomas," Linda interrupted gently, "maybe we should wait for the test results before making any plans." His expression sobered. "Of course, I didn't mean to presume." "It's cool," Olivia said quickly. "I'd love to hear about the quantum computing thing regardless of whose DNA I have." The tension eased, and conversation flowed more naturally as the meal progressed. Linda observed the easy rapport developing between Thomas and Olivia, the way they finished each other's technical explanations, their shared enthusiasm for theoretical problems. It was both heartwarming and heart-wrenching to witness. By the time dessert arrived, Olivia was animatedly explaining her research, while Thomas offered suggestions that clearly impressed her. Linda found herself thinking that regardless of biology, these two belonged in each other's lives. Dr. James Reynolds pulled into the parking garage of his modest condominium, bone-tired after another day at the Thornton estate. For 25 years, he'd maintained the fiction that Maria needed constant medication for her own safety. 25 years of watching a vibrant woman fade into a shadow. He'd started reducing her medication 3 days ago. Just slightly. Not enough for the nurses to notice, but enough that he'd seen a flicker of awareness in her eyes this morning. A dangerous game, but he couldn't live with himself anymore. As he exited his car, a voice came from the shadows. "Dr. Reynolds," he startled, turning to find Mark Thornton leaning against a concrete pillar. "Mr. Thornton, what brings you here?" "Concern." Mark stepped forward, his expensive shoes clicking on the concrete. "The nursing staff reports that Maria seems more present lately, almost as if her medication isn't working properly." Reynolds maintained a neutral expression. "Tolerance develops with long-term use. We may need to adjust her regimen." "Interesting theory." Mark circled him slowly. "Yet when I checked the pharmacy records, her prescriptions haven't changed in 3 years. Medical decisions are my purview, Mr. Thornton, and Maria is my family's responsibility." Mark's voice hardened. "My father trusted you implicitly, doctor. He believed you understood the importance of maintaining Maria's current state for her safety." "Yes." Reynolds met his gaze steadily. "But I've been reviewing recent research on schizophrenia treatments. We might achieve better quality of life with modified protocols. My father had very specific instructions regarding Maria's care." "Your father has been dead for 3 years." Mark's expression darkened. "The family's wishes remain unchanged. As her physician, I must consider—" "As her physician," Mark interrupted, "you should remember who pays your considerable salary and who protected you when that patient died under your care in 1992. Reynolds felt cold sweat break out along his spine. Walter Thornton had buried that malpractice case, saved his license and reputation. "Maria stays exactly as she is," Mark continued, "or we might need to reconsider our arrangement." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Reynolds shaking in the dim garage. In her apartment that evening, Linda pulled out a dusty box from the top shelf of her closet. It contained the few mementos she had of Claire: photographs, letters, and at the bottom, a yellowed newspaper clipping about her death. She read it again, seeing it with new eyes. The vague details, the lack of specific information about how or where the body was found, a tragic accident with no witnesses, a body positively identified by family, though Linda knew now that wasn't true. Next to the clipping was a faded hospital bracelet, the only evidence of Olivia's birth. No birth certificate, no official documentation. Claire had appeared that night with a newborn, frantic and terrified, insisting Linda take the baby and the ring because they were after her. Linda had assumed they meant an abusive boyfriend, or perhaps drug dealers. She'd never considered it might be one of Chicago's most powerful families. The ringing of her phone interrupted her thoughts. She answered without checking the ID. "Linda, it's Thomas. The results are in." Her heart skipped. "Already, Dr. Werner said it would take 2 days. I have some connections at the lab." He paused. "Olivia is my daughter." Linda closed her eyes, a complex wave of emotions washing over her. Relief at finally knowing the truth. Fear about what it might mean for her relationship with Olivia. And underneath it all, a growing certainty that Claire's story didn't end with a death certificate. "Linda, are you there?" "Yes," she said finally. "What do we do now?" "We find out what really happened to Claire," Thomas replied, determination hardening his voice. "And then we make whoever is responsible pay." "You're sure you want to do this?" Linda asked. Watching Olivia pace around their small living room, the DNA results had arrived 3 days ago, confirming what they'd already begun to suspect. Thomas Sinclair was Olivia's biological father. Olivia stopped pacing, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. "I don't know what I want anymore. Aunt Linda, my whole life just shifted. Nothing has to change if you don't want it to." "Everything's already changed." Olivia sank onto the couch. "For 25 years, I thought my father was some nameless guy who abandoned my mother. Now I find out he's one of the richest men in Chicago. That he didn't even know I existed. She shook her head. And my mother, if what you and Thomas believe is true, she might not even be dead. Linda sat beside her, taking her hand. I should have questioned things more back then. I was just 17, suddenly responsible for a baby. It was easier to accept what the authorities told me. You did your best, Olivia said, squeezing her hand. But I need to know the truth now. All of it. The doorbell rang, and Linda rose to answer it. Thomas stood in the hallway, his normally impeccable appearance slightly rumpled, as if he'd been working through the night. I think I found something, he said without preamble. Carrying a thick folder into the apartment, Olivia straightened. About my mother. Thomas nodded, spreading documents across the coffee table. My investigator uncovered medical records from a private clinic that treated a Jane Doe the same week Claire supposedly died. The patient had injuries consistent with a struggle and was transferred to a private facility owned by a shell company. Thornton Technologies, Linda guessed. Exactly. Thomas pointed to a financial document. The shell company traces back to Walter Thornton. The clinic received a substantial payment, and the doctor who treated Jane Doe retired the following month. So they faked her death, Olivia said quietly. But why keep her alive? Why not just... She couldn't finish the sentence. Thomas's expression darkened. I believe Walter wanted to punish me in the most lasting way possible. Killing Claire would have been final. I would have grieved and eventually moved on. But taking her and keeping her hidden, knowing she was out there somewhere while I searched fruitlessly, he shook his head. That's the kind of revenge Walter would have savored. But for 25 years, Linda asked incredulously. That's beyond revenge. That's monstrous. Walter Thornton was a monster, Thomas said simply. But he died 3 years ago, which means someone else is continuing his work. Mark, Linda whispered. Thinking of her cold, calculating boss, Thomas nodded grimly. His son is the most likely candidate, though I'm not sure he knows the whole story. From what I've gathered, Walter kept many secrets, even from his family. Olivia had been studying the documents intently. These transfer records, they show a patient being moved to what looks like a private estate outside the city. Thornton Estate. Yes, and that's where I hit a wall. Thomas ran a hand through his hair in frustration. The estate is heavily secured. No way to get in without an invitation. Unless you work for the Thorntons, Linda said slowly. All eyes turned to her. Mark owns Liciel. I'm technically a Thornton employee. Linda. No. Thomas shook his head firmly. It's too dangerous. Mark already watches you closely at the restaurant. But he doesn't know that I know anything, she countered. I could find a reason to visit the estate. Absolutely not, both Thomas and Olivia said simultaneously, then looked at each other in surprise. That's uncanny, Linda murmured, observing how they mirrored each other's expressions of concern. Despite the gravity of the situation, she couldn't help a small smile at this visible evidence of their shared DNA. Olivia turned back to the documents. There must be another way. What about this doctor? Reynolds. His name appears on several of these records. He's been Maria's physician for 25 years, Thomas confirmed, but he's completely loyal to the Thorntons. Walter saved his career after a malpractice incident. Everyone has their breaking point, Linda said thoughtfully. 25 years is a long time to live with a guilty conscience. Thomas considered this. It's worth a try, but approaching him directly could be risky if he alerts Mark. We need leverage, Olivia said decisively, her analytical mind clearly inherited from her father, something that would make him more afraid of us than the Thorntons. They fell into silence, each contemplating the monumental task before them. Finding Claire, if she was indeed still alive, would mean confronting one of Chicago's most powerful families, exposing decades of deception, and potentially putting themselves in danger. I should tell you something, Olivia said suddenly. I've been having these dreams since I was little, about a woman singing to me in Spanish. Linda's eyebrows rose. You never told me that. Because it didn't make sense. Neither of you speak Spanish. Olivia looked at Thomas. But these reports mention that the patient at the Thornton estate is known as Maria. That's a Spanish name. Thomas and Linda exchanged startled glances. Could be coincidence, Thomas said, but his voice lacked conviction. Or it could be memory, Linda suggested quietly. Olivia was almost a year old when Claire brought her to me, old enough to potentially retain fragmentary memories. The thought hung between them. electrifying and terrifying, if Olivia remembered a Spanish-speaking woman. It supported their growing theory that Claire had been kept alive at the Thornton estate under a false identity. "I want to see a picture of her," Olivia said firmly. "This Maria?" Thomas nodded. "I'll have my investigator work on it. In the meantime, we need to be careful. Mark Thornton is already suspicious. And if he realizes we're getting close to the truth, he might move her," Linda finished the thought. "Or worse, which is why we need to proceed with extreme caution." Thomas gathered the documents, organizing them methodically. No one makes a move without consulting the others first, as he prepared to leave. Thomas hesitated at the door, looking at Olivia with an expression of mingled wonder and regret. "I've missed so much of your life, I wish." "We can't change the past," Olivia interrupted, her voice gentle despite the firmness of her words. "But we can fix what's happening now, together." Thomas nodded, a look of determination replacing the regret. Together, after he left, Olivia turned to Linda. "Are you okay with all this? It's changing everything." Linda smiled sadly. "I've always known this day might come, that someday the truth about your parents would emerge." "You're still my mom," Olivia said fiercely, embracing her. "Biology doesn't change that. You raised me, loved me, sacrificed for me. Nothing will ever change what we are to each other." Linda held her tight, grateful for the reassurance, even as she wondered what their family might look like if they succeeded in finding Claire. Would there be room for her in Olivia's life if both biological parents returned? She pushed the selfish thought away. Finding Claire, her sister, Olivia's mother, was what mattered now. What came after would have to be faced when the time arrived. Dr. James Reynolds sat in his car outside the Thornton estate, his hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. He'd reduced Maria's medication again today, not enough to alert the nursing staff, but enough that he'd seen a flicker of recognition in her eyes when he'd shown her a photograph of Thomas Sinclair. He was playing a dangerous game. Mark Thornton's thinly veiled threats still echoed in his mind, but he couldn't continue the deception any longer, not after seeing the news report about Thomas Sinclair's charitable foundation, a foundation created in memory of Claire Parker. After 25 years of complicity, James Reynolds had made his decision. He would help Thomas Sinclair find the truth, whatever the personal cost. He reached for his phone and dialed a number he'd memorized years ago, but never had the courage to call. "Sinclair speaking. Mr. Sinclair, my name is Dr. James Reynolds." He took a deep breath. "I believe I have information about Claire Parker, and I'm ready to talk." Thomas chose a secluded corner of the university library for his meeting with Dr. Reynolds. The elderly physician looked frail beneath the fluorescent lights, his hands trembling slightly as he placed a worn leather portfolio on the table. "I've been Maria's doctor for 25 years, Reynolds began, his voice barely above a whisper. "Walter Thornton hired me after a malpractice suit nearly ended my career. I was desperate, and he offered a way out, a private patient who needed specialized care." "Maria," Thomas said, keeping his own voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Reynolds nodded. "That's what Walter called her. He said she was a distant relative with severe schizophrenia, that she needed constant medication and supervision." He looked down at his hands. "I believed him at first. She was confused, combative, exhibited classic symptoms of psychosis. What I didn't know then was that her condition was drug-induced. Not natural." Thomas clenched his fists under the table. "You're saying Walter Thornton deliberately kept her drugged to maintain the illusion she was mentally ill?" "Yes." Reynolds opened the portfolio and slid out a photograph. "This is Maria 3 years ago." Thomas felt the air leave his lungs. The woman in the photo was gaunt, her eyes vacant, but beneath the hollow cheeks and premature gray, he could still see Claire. His Claire. "It's her," he whispered, fingers hovering over the image, afraid to touch it as if it might disappear. "She's alive." Reynolds nodded grimly. "After Walter died, I found his private journal. He detailed everything. How he arranged Claire's kidnapping to punish you. How she'd escaped briefly a year later, heavily pregnant." He paused. "Walter was furious when he discovered she'd delivered a child during captivity. He hadn't known she was pregnant when he took her. What happened when she escaped? She delivered the baby somewhere in hiding, then briefly gave the child to her sister before Walter's men recaptured her. During the struggle, Claire suffered a head injury. Walter used that as the foundation for her new identity. Maria, a mentally unstable relative who needed seclusion and medication. Thomas struggled to process the monstrous calculation behind Walter's actions. For 25 years, you've helped maintain this fiction. I'm not proud of my role, Reynolds said, his voice heavy with shame. At first, I genuinely believed she needed the medication. By the time I began to suspect the truth, I was too complicit, too afraid of legal consequences. He met Thomas's gaze directly. But I can't continue this. Not anymore. Does she remember anything? Hard to say. The years of medication have taken their toll. I've been gradually reducing her dosage, but recovery, if possible, would be slow. He hesitated. There's more. Mark doesn't know the full truth. Walter never told him that Maria is really Claire Parker, only that she's important to the family. So Mark is continuing his father's crime without even knowing exactly what it is. Essentially, yes, but Mark is suspicious of her importance and terrified of losing control of her. After his brother Scott died 5 years ago, Mark became even more protective of the family's secrets. Thomas absorbed this information, his mind racing. We need to get her out of there. It won't be easy. The estate is heavily secured, and Mark watches her closely, but... Reynolds hesitated. But what? The Thorntons host an annual charity gala at the estate. It's the one time outsiders are allowed in. Reynolds pulled out an invitation. As her physician, I receive one every year. This year, I could bring a guest. Thomas took the invitation, hope rising for the first time in decades. When? Next weekend. You're going where? Melissa Sinclair stood in the doorway of Thomas's home office, her expression incredulous. The Thornton Foundation Gala, Thomas repeated, not looking up from his laptop. The Thorntons are your biggest competitors. You've refused their invitations for years. Perspectives change. He finally met her gaze. It's good business to maintain cordial relationships, even with rivals. Melissa crossed her arms. This sudden interest in social niceties wouldn't have anything to do with your mysterious meetings over the past few weeks, would it? Or perhaps with the young woman I saw you having lunch with downtown. Thomas stiffened. You've been having me followed. Don't be dramatic. Cynthia Wilson saw you and mentioned it. Chicago's social circle is small. Her tone softened slightly. Thomas, what's going on? You've been distant. Distracted Nicholas has noticed too. Guilt twisted in his stomach. He'd been so focused on finding Claire, on getting to know Olivia, that he'd neglected his wife and son. They deserved the truth, but telling them everything now could jeopardize the delicate plan to rescue Claire. I've been working on something complicated, he said carefully. Something I can't discuss yet, even with you. We don't keep secrets from each other. Her voice had a fragile quality he rarely heard. This isn't just my secret to share. Once it's resolved, I promise I'll explain everything. Melissa studied him, hurt evident in her eyes. Does this have anything to do with Claire? Thomas hesitated a fraction too long. I thought so. Melissa's voice hardened. 26 years, Thomas. You promised you'd let her go. This is different. There's new information. There's always new information when you want there to be. She turned to leave, then paused. Whatever you're doing, be careful. The Thorntons play by different rules than you do. As she left, Thomas wondered if she was right. Was he risking everything, his family, his company, possibly even his life, on what might be another dead end? But the photo of Claire, alive but imprisoned in a false identity, haunted him. He had to try. In his bedroom at the Sinclair residence, 17-year-old Nicholas scrolled through social media, barely glancing up when his mother knocked and entered. Have you started packing for the ski trip? Melissa asked, looking around at the cluttered room. Not yet, he muttered, eyes still on his phone. Nicholas, you leave tomorrow. Your father has arranged for the jet to... Dad's arranged it, wow. He actually remembered I exist. The bitterness in his voice was palpable. Melissa sighed, sitting on the edge of his bed. Your father loves you, he's just preoccupied with work lately. It's not work, Nicholas said, finally looking up. He's hiding something, haven't you noticed? The secret calls, the mysterious meetings, how he stops talking when I enter a room. Melissa was surprised by her son's perceptiveness. Adults sometimes have complicated issues to manage. Is he having an affair?" Nicholas asked bluntly. "No." The denial came quickly, though a sliver of doubt had begun to form in her own mind. "Your father wouldn't do that." Nicholas returned to his phone, apparently unconvinced. "Whatever. If he doesn't care about what's happening in my life, why should I care about his?" After Melissa left, Nicholas pulled up a different screen on his phone. Photos he'd taken of documents from his father's office. Information about someone named Claire Parker, details of a DNA test, and notes about the Thornton family. Whatever secret his father was keeping, Nicholas was determined to uncover it himself. In the east wing of the Thornton estate, Maria sat by the window, watching a cardinal land on a nearby branch. For years, her days had passed in a medicated fog, but lately, something was changing. The fog was thinning, and with its retreat came fragments. Images, feelings, names that seemed important, but slipped away when she tried to grasp them. Today, a new name had surfaced from the mist. Olivia. The name came with a sensation of profound loss and love so intense it made her chest ache. She whispered it now, testing it on her tongue. Olivia. A tear slid down her cheek, though she couldn't quite understand why. She only knew that something precious had been taken from her, and for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of anger beneath the chemical haze. Dr. Reynolds had shown her a photo of a man yesterday. Thomas, he'd called him. The name had triggered something. Not quite a memory, but a feeling of warmth, of safety. She'd dreamed of him last night, of his hands holding hers, of a green ring sparkling in sunlight. Maria, though somewhere deep inside she knew that wasn't her real name, touched her bare finger where the ring should have been. Another loss she couldn't quite remember, but she would remember somehow. She knew that everything was about to change. Dr. Reynolds moved quietly through the east wing of the Thornton estate, nodding to the security guards who had become increasingly present over the past week. Mark was tightening security ahead of the gala. Though Reynolds suspected it had more to do with his growing paranoia about Maria than concern for the event's high-profile guests, he found her in the garden room, seated in a patch of sunlight that highlighted the silver strands in her dark hair. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, but there was something different about her posture today, a certain alertness that had been absent for years. "Good morning, Maria," he said, setting his medical bag on a side table. She turned slowly, her green eyes more focused than he'd seen in recent memory. "Doctor," she replied, her voice clearer than usual. The Spanish accent Walter had insisted she develop as part of her Maria persona had faded. Another sign the medication reduction was working. "How are you feeling today?" He performed the routine checks, blood pressure, pupils, reflexes, while watching her closely. "I had dreams," she said suddenly, "of a baby crying, my baby." Her hand went to her chest as if searching for something that should hang there. "I had a ring. Where is it?" Reynolds felt his heart race. This was the most coherent connection to her past she'd made yet. "Can you tell me about the ring?" Her brow furrowed with concentration. "Green, like emeralds. He gave it to me." "Who gave it to you, Maria?" She shook her head in frustration. "Not Maria, that's not right." Reynolds glanced at the door, making sure they were alone. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small photograph, keeping it concealed in his palm. "I want to show you something, but you must not tell anyone I did. It's very important. Do you understand?" She nodded, her eyes suddenly sharp with focus. He opened his hand, revealing a photo of the emerald ring, the same one Thomas had entrusted to him yesterday. "Is this it?" Her breath caught. "Yes." She reached for it with trembling fingers. "Mine. He gave it to me because he loved you," Reynolds finished softly. "Thomas loved you. Thomas." She repeated the name like a revelation, tears filling her eyes. "Thomas and Olivia." Reynolds felt a chill. He hadn't mentioned Olivia, hadn't shown her any pictures of the young woman. This memory was emerging entirely on its own. "My baby," she whispered, the tears spilling over. "They took my baby." "No," Reynolds said gently. "Your baby is safe. She's grown now, and she's looking for you." Maria, no, Claire, looked at him with desperate hope. "Olivia is alive, and Thomas?" "Yes, both alive and well." and they want to help you remember who you really are." Before she could respond, the door opened. Reynolds quickly pocketed the photograph as Nurse Green entered with a medication tray. "Time for your morning dose, Maria," the nurse said cheerfully. Claire looked at Reynolds with suddenly panicked eyes. He gave an imperceptible nod, hoping she would understand not to fight this battle yet. "Doctor," Nurse Green paused, noticing the tension. "Is everything all right?" "Fine," Reynolds replied smoothly. "I was just explaining to Maria that her medication might make her drowsy today. I've adjusted the dosage slightly." He had, in fact, replaced her usual sedatives with harmless substitutes in identical capsules. A risky move, but necessary. As the gala approached, the nurse watched as Claire dutifully swallowed the pills, then left to continue her rounds. 3 more days, Reynolds whispered once they were alone. "In 3 days, people will come to help you, friends. But until then, you must play your part. Act as you always have. Can you do that?" Claire nodded, a new determination in her eyes. "Yes, I'll remember." Reynolds wasn't sure if she meant she'd remember to act her part, or that she'd continue the journey back to her true memories. Perhaps both. Either way, he felt both hopeful and terrified of what was to come. "I don't think this is a good idea," Linda said, pacing Thomas's office. "The Thorntons know who I am. If Mark sees me at the gala, you'll be unrecognizable," Thomas assured her, showing her the invitation. "It's a masquerade theme. Half the guests will be wearing elaborate masks." "Even so," Olivia interjected. "Mom's right. It's too risky for her to go. That's why I should be the one to accompany Dr. Reynolds." "Absolutely not," Linda and Thomas said in unison, then exchanged a look of shared exasperation. "You keep doing that," Olivia observed with a hint of amusement. "It's actually kind of comforting to see both my parents united in overprotectiveness." Thomas felt a curious warmth at hearing Olivia refer to him as her parent, even casually. He'd missed so many years of her life, yet somehow, in just a few weeks, they'd begun forging a genuine connection. "This isn't about overprotection," he said gently. "Mark Thornton doesn't know about you yet. If something goes wrong, you'd be in serious danger." "And you wouldn't be," Olivia challenged. "The Thorntons have spent 25 years hiding this secret. You think they'll just let you walk in and expose everything?" "I have resources and influence that provide some protection," Thomas explained. "Plus, I've known the Thorntons for decades. They won't expect me to make a move at their own event." "What about me?" Linda asked. "If you and Dr. Reynolds are inside, what do I do?" "You'll be in the surveillance van with my security team, monitoring everything through Dr. Reynolds' wire." Thomas pointed to the blueprint spread across his desk. "If something goes wrong, they have extraction protocols ready?" Olivia studied the plans with a critical eye. "And what about afterward, assuming you find her and she's coherent enough to leave? Where will you take her?" It was the question that had kept Thomas awake for nights. When they rescued Claire, she would need specialized care, protection from the Thorntons, and a safe place to recover. "I have a property in Michigan," he said. "Isolated, secure, with medical facilities we can adapt for her needs. Dr. Reynolds has agreed to relocate temporarily to oversee her care. And we'd go with her," Linda stated. Not a question, but a declaration. Thomas nodded. "Of course, she'll need both of you." He hesitated before adding, "And I'll be there as much as possible. Though I'll need to maintain appearances in Chicago to avoid arousing suspicion." Olivia's expression softened. "This might actually work." "It has to," Thomas said simply. Too much was at stake now. Not just Claire's freedom, but the family they might still become. Nicholas Sinclair parked his BMW a block away from the address he'd found in his father's files. The apartment building was modest, definitely not his father's usual style, which made the whole situation even more suspicious. He'd been tracking his father's movements for a week, piecing together fragments of a mystery that seemed to revolve around someone named Claire Parker, an emerald ring, and increasingly, the Thornton family, and somehow, the woman who lived in this apartment, Linda Parker, was central to it all. Nicholas pulled his baseball cap lower and adjusted his sunglasses. His mother would be furious if she knew he'd skipped his ski trip. But this felt more important. His family was falling apart. His father more distant than ever, and he was determined to understand why. As he settled in to wait, The building's door opened. A young woman emerged, mid-20s, dark hair pulled into a messy bun, carrying a laptop bag. She walked with purpose, checking her phone as she moved. Something about her seemed oddly familiar. Though Nicholas was certain they'd never met, he followed at a distance as she walked to a nearby coffee shop. Inside, she ordered and took a seat by the window, opening her laptop. Nicholas chose a table with a view of her screen, pretending to be absorbed in his phone, when his father walked into the coffee shop 10 minutes later. Nicholas nearly dropped his phone in shock. Thomas greeted the young woman warmly, sitting across from her and sliding a flash drive across the table. They talked intently, heads close together, reviewing something on her screen. The way they interacted wasn't romantic, none of the telltale signs of an affair, but there was an undeniable intimacy between them. The young woman laughed at something his father said, and Nicholas was struck by how similar their smiles looked. A cold feeling settled in his stomach. He needed to know who this woman was, and what she meant to his father. He snapped a discreet photo with his phone, then slipped out before either could notice him. As he walked back to his car, Nicholas made a decision. His father was attending the Thornton Gala this weekend, an event he'd avoided for years. Whatever was happening, it was coming to a head there, and Nicholas intended to be present when it did, even if he had to crash the party in her room at the Thornton estate. Claire sat very still, eyes closed, fighting to hold on to the fragments of memory that kept surfacing through the thinning medication haze. A park with autumn leaves, Thomas's hands holding hers, the weight of a baby in her arms. "Olivia," she whispered, letting the name anchor her. Thomas. Claire. Her own name still felt strange on her tongue. After 25 years of answering to another, she opened her eyes, gazing at her reflection in the vanity mirror. Behind the premature lines and gray hair, she could begin to see traces of the woman she had been, the woman she might be again. 3 more days until the gala. 3 days to continue remembering, to gather her strength. 3 days until she might finally escape the beautiful prison that had held her for 25 years. Claire touched her bare ring finger, imagining the emerald that had once rested there, the symbol of a love she was only now remembering. "I'm still here," she whispered to her reflection. "I'm still here." The night of the Thornton Foundation Gala arrived with a light snow dusting the grounds of the sprawling estate. Luxury vehicles lined the circular driveway as Chicago's elite arrived in evening wear and elaborate masks, fulfilling the masquerade theme. Thomas adjusted his simple black mask in the rearview mirror of his Bentley. The disguise wouldn't fool anyone who knew him well, but it provided enough anonymity among casual acquaintances to serve their purpose. "Comm check," came Linda's voice through his nearly invisible earpiece. "I hear you," Thomas responded quietly, touching his tie where the microphone was concealed. "Dr. Reynolds is already inside," Linda confirmed from the surveillance van parked a half-mile away. "He says security is heavier than usual, but nothing that should interfere with the plan." Thomas exited the car, handing his keys to the valet. "Has he seen Claire today?" "Yes, he says she's more lucid than she's been in years. The reduced medication is working." Thomas felt a surge of both hope and apprehension. The plan was simple in theory. Dr. Reynolds would create a diversion in the East Wing, allowing Thomas to slip away from the main event and find Claire. They would exit through the conservatory, to where Linda waited with the van. Yet so many things could go wrong. "I'm going in," he said, straightening his shoulders and approaching the entrance. Inside, the Thornton mansion was transformed. Crystal chandeliers illuminated a sea of designer gowns and tailored suits. While a string quartet played classical music in the corner, servers glided through the crowd with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Thomas accepted a glass and scanned the room through the eye holes of his mask. Mark Thornton stood near the massive fireplace, entertaining a group of business associates. His mother, Eleanor Thornton, a formidable woman in her 70s, held court on the opposite side of the room. "Mr. Sinclair," came a voice from behind him. "What an unexpected pleasure." Thomas turned to find Mark Thornton himself, wearing an ornate mask that did little to disguise his identity or his surprise at Thomas's presence. "Thornton," Thomas acknowledged with a slight nod. "An impressive event." "Indeed, though I must admit, after declining our invitations for so many years, your attendance tonight is intriguing." Mark's smile didn't reach his eyes. "What changed your mind?" Perhaps I'm finally learning the value of keeping friends close and enemies closer. Thomas raised his glass in a mock toast. Mark's smile tightened. How philosophical. Well, do enjoy yourself. The silent auction items are particularly impressive this year. As Mark moved away to greet other guests, Thomas released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He's suspicious, Linda said through the earpiece, having heard the exchange. Of course he is, Thomas murmured, keeping his expression pleasant as he navigated through the crowd. But suspicion isn't proof. We stick to the plan. The next hour passed in excruciating slowness as Thomas mingled, making brief conversation while keeping track of Mark's position at precisely 9:30. The lights in the east wing flickered momentarily. Dr. Reynolds' signal. That's your cue, Linda confirmed in his ear. Dr. Reynolds has disabled the security cameras in the corridor for the next 10 minutes. Go now. Thomas casually drifted toward the east wing, slipping through a door marked private when no one was looking. The corridor beyond was dimly lit and quiet, a stark contrast to the glittering party behind him. Third door on the left, came Dr. Reynolds' voice through the earpiece. I've given her something to help her stay calm during transport, but she's alert. Be gentle. She's still fragile. Thomas approached the door, his heart pounding so hard he was certain it would give him away. After 26 years of searching, of wondering, of grieving, he was about to see Claire again. He turned the handle slowly, entering a suite decorated in soft blues and creams. Sitting in an armchair by the window, illuminated by moonlight, was a woman in a simple navy dress. Claire, he whispered, his voice breaking on her name. She turned, and Thomas felt the years fall away, despite the premature aging, the hollow cheeks, the silver threading through her dark hair. Those eyes were unmistakably Claire's, the same vivid green that had captivated him when they first met, the same eyes their daughter had inherited. Thomas, she rose unsteadily, one hand gripping the chair for support. Is it really you? He crossed the room in 3 strides, taking her hands in his. Yes, I'm here to take you home. Her fingers tightened around his, surprisingly strong. I knew you'd come. Somehow, I always knew. Thomas wanted nothing more than to hold her, to apologize for every minute of the past 26 years, but there was no time. We need to go, he said gently. Can you walk? She nodded. The medicine makes me dizzy sometimes, but I can manage. Thomas supported her with an arm around her waist as they moved toward the door. Linda and Olivia are waiting. Olivia, Claire's voice filled with emotion. My baby is safe. She's really alive. She's beautiful, brilliant, and very much alive, Thomas assured her. She looks just like you. Claire's steps faltered. I barely remember her, just feelings, fragments. They took her from me. We'll help you remember, Thomas promised. Everything. They reached the door, pausing to listen for any sound in the corridor. All clear, Linda confirmed through the earpiece. Proceed to the conservatory. Thomas led Claire into the hallway, moving as quickly as her unsteady gait allowed. They were halfway to their destination when a new voice came through Thomas's earpiece. Dad, what are you doing here? Thomas froze. Nicholas, where are you? How are you on this channel? I followed you, came his son's voice. I'm at the party. Who's Linda? And who's that woman with you? Before Thomas could respond, the lights in the corridor blazed to life. At the far end stood Mark Thornton, his mask removed, his expression a mixture of rage and triumph. I thought you might try something tonight, Sinclair, he called, advancing toward them. Though I must admit, stealing a family member goes beyond even what I expected from you. Thomas positioned himself protectively in front of Claire. She's not your family, Thornton. She never was. What are you talking about? Maria has been under Thornton care for 25 years. Her name is Claire Parker, Thomas declared, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. She was kidnapped and held against her will by your father, and now we're leaving. Mark's face paled slightly, but he continued advancing. I don't know what delusions you're operating under, but Maria is mentally ill and under legal guardianship of the Thornton family. Thomas? Claire whispered urgently behind him. The conservatory. There's another way. She tugged him toward a side door, surprising him with her certainty. They slipped through it just as security guards appeared at the end of the hall. The conservatory was a glass-enclosed garden, filled with exotic plants and a small fountain. Claire moved with sudden purpose, leading Thomas to a service door hidden behind a large palm. "How did you know about this?" Thomas asked as they hurried through. "I've had 25 years to learn this house," she replied grimly. "Even through the medication, some things stayed with me." The service corridor led to a kitchen exit. They emerged into the cold night air, just as shouts echoed from inside the house. "Linda?" Thomas spoke urgently into his concealed microphone. "East kitchen exit now." "On our way," came the immediate response. 30 seconds. Thomas helped Claire navigate the snowy path toward the service road. Behind them, flashlight beams cut through the darkness as security spread out across the grounds. "Almost there," he encouraged her as she stumbled. Just a little farther. The black van appeared around the bend, headlights off, moving slowly toward them. It stopped, and the side door slid open to reveal Linda. "Claire!" she cried, reaching out to help her sister into the vehicle. The reunion was brief and tearful as the sisters embraced for the first time in 25 years. "Linda," Claire whispered, "you kept her safe. You kept Olivia safe. Always," Linda promised, helping Claire to a seat. Thomas climbed in after them, and the van accelerated away from the estate, just as alarms began to sound behind them. "What about Nicholas?" Thomas asked urgently. "He's still at the party." "I've got him," Linda assured him, holding up her phone. "He texted his location. We're picking him up a mile down the road where he parked." Thomas slumped in relief, watching Claire as she gazed out the window at the passing landscape, her first taste of freedom in nearly 3 decades. "She's really here," Linda said softly, tears in her eyes. "After all this time," Thomas nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in his throat. They'd done it. They'd rescued Claire from her prison. But as the adrenaline of escape began to fade, he knew the hardest part was still ahead. Mark Thornton would not let this go without a fight, and Claire's journey back to herself had only just begun. The lake house in northern Michigan sat nestled among towering pines, its large windows reflecting the moonlight on the water. Inside, Claire sat wrapped in a blanket by the fireplace, her gaze fixed on the young woman across from her. Olivia, her daughter, 25 years old now, brilliant and beautiful, a stranger with her eyes. "I don't know what to call you," Olivia admitted, breaking the silence that had fallen between them. "Mom seems... Linda has been my mom my whole life." Claire nodded, understanding the complexity of their situation. "You can call me Claire for now. Names are important." She touched her temple lightly. "For a long time, I answered to Maria. It still feels strange to hear my real name." 3 days had passed since their escape from the Thornton estate. Dr. Reynolds had joined them, monitoring Claire's health as her body adjusted to being free of the heavy medication. The withdrawal symptoms, headaches, tremors, occasional disorientation, were manageable but exhausting. "Dr. Reynolds says your memories might come back gradually," Olivia said. "Do you remember anything about me from when I was a baby?" Claire closed her eyes, concentrating. "Fragments. Your weight in my arms. Singing to you in the dark." She opened her eyes, pain evident in them. "I remember the night I brought you to Linda. I was so afraid they would find us, would take you too." Olivia leaned forward, her scientific mind seeking understanding. "How did you escape the first time, One of the guards got careless. I'd been pretending to be more drugged than I was. Saving medication." Claire's voice grew distant. "I was already pregnant when they took me, though I didn't know it yet. When I realized, I became determined to protect you." She looked up at Olivia. "You saved me in a way, gave me something to fight for." From the doorway, Thomas watched the interaction between mother and daughter with a complex mixture of emotions. Pride in Olivia's compassionate approach to Claire, wonder at seeing them together after so many years, guilt that he hadn't found Claire sooner. Nicholas stood beside him, still processing everything he'd learned since that night at the gala. His father's secret search, the half-sister he never knew existed, the crime committed against the woman who might have been his stepmother in another life. "You should join them," Nicholas said quietly. Thomas hesitated. "They need time together. They need you too." Nicholas nudged him forward. "Go on. I'll help Linda with the dinner preparations." As Nicholas headed toward the kitchen, Thomas entered the living room. Claire looked up, a smile transforming her face despite her exhaustion. "Thomas," she said, reaching out her hand. He sat beside her, taking her offered hand in his. "How are you feeling?" "Better each day." "My thoughts are clearer." She squeezed his fingers. "I remember more about us. The bookstore where we met. The picnic by the lake when it rained. You insisted we stay," Thomas recalled, his voice warm with the memory. "Said the rain made everything more alive." Claire nodded, her eyes brightening. "You thought I was crazy." "I thought you were magnificent," he corrected. Olivia watched them, seeing the connection that had survived 26 years of separation. "You still had the ring," she said to Thomas. "All this time." Thomas nodded, releasing Claire's hand to withdraw a small velvet box from his pocket. "I could never bring myself to put it away." He opened the box, revealing the emerald ring that had started their journey back to each other. Claire gasped softly, tears filling her eyes. "You told me it matched my eyes," she whispered. "It still does," Thomas replied, offering her the box. Claire touched the ring reverently, but didn't take it. "Not yet, I'm still finding myself." She looked at her daughter, "Finding my place in both your lives." The moment was interrupted by Linda's entrance. "Dinner's ready," she announced, her gaze lingering on her sister. "If you're feeling up to it, Claire." "I am," Claire assured her, rising carefully. Each meal without being monitored is a gift. As they moved toward the dining room, the security system chimed. One of Thomas's men appeared in the doorway, his expression grave. "Sir, we have a situation. Mark Thornton's helicopter just landed at the local airstrip. He's with the county sheriff and claiming he has legal guardianship papers for Maria Thornton." Thomas's jaw tightened. "How did he find us?" "Unknown, sir, but they're 15 minutes out." Claire swayed slightly, her face paling. "He's coming for me." "No," Thomas said firmly, supporting her elbow. "He's not taking you anywhere." Dr. Reynolds emerged from his room down the hall, having overheard. "I have documentation proving Claire's true identity and evidence of Walter Thornton's crimes." He looked apologetic. "I should have come forward years ago." "Will it be enough?" Linda asked, instinctively moving closer to Claire. "It has to be," Thomas replied. "Reynolds, Linda, take Claire upstairs. Olivia, Nicholas, help me gather the documentation. We'll meet them at the door." As the others dispersed, Nicholas hung back. "Dad, there's something I need to tell you about how Thornton might have found us." Thomas turned to his son. "What is it?" "I've been tracking your movements for weeks, trying to understand what was happening with our family." Nicholas looked down. "I had location sharing enabled on my phone during the gala. If someone accessed my accounts..." Thomas's expression hardened momentarily, then softened as he saw the guilt in his son's face. "It's done. Now help me fix it." When Mark Thornton arrived with Sheriff Davis and 2 deputies, Thomas met them on the front porch, flanked by Olivia and Nicholas. "Sinclair," Mark acknowledged coldly. "You've gone too far this time, kidnapping a mentally ill woman from her legal guardians." "Sheriff," Thomas addressed the officer directly, "I have evidence that the woman known as Maria Thornton is actually Claire Parker, who was abducted 26 years ago by Walter Thornton." "That's absurd," Mark scoffed, handing the sheriff a folder. "I have legal guardianship papers dating back decades. Maria has been under our family's care due to severe mental illness. Manufactured mental illness," came Dr. Reynolds' voice as he stepped onto the porch. "Sheriff Davis, I'm Dr. James Reynolds. I've been Maria, or rather, Claire's physician for 25 years. I have medical evidence proving her condition was induced and maintained through unnecessary medication." The sheriff looked between the two parties, clearly uncomfortable. "This is beyond my jurisdiction. If there are competing claims about this woman's identity, then perhaps you should ask her yourself," Thomas suggested. Stepping aside as the door opened, Claire emerged, Linda supporting her arm. She had changed into a simple but elegant dress, her hair freshly brushed, her posture as straight as her weakened state allowed. Despite the years and hardship etched into her face, her dignity was unmistakable. Mark's eyes widened. "Maria, these people have kidnapped you. We're here to take you home." Claire looked at him steadily. "My name is Claire Parker. I am not mentally ill, and I have never been a member of your family." "You're confused," Mark insisted. The doctors warned this might happen if your medication was interrupted. The only confusion was the one your father deliberately created, Claire replied, her voice growing stronger. He kidnapped me to punish Thomas, kept me drugged for years, and stole my identity. He took me away from my daughter. She gestured to Olivia, who stepped forward to stand beside her. Sheriff Davis looked increasingly uncomfortable. Ma'am, do you have any proof of your identity? DNA evidence, Thomas interjected, handing the sheriff a folder. Proving that Claire is the biological mother of Olivia Parker Sinclair. We also have Dr. Reynolds' testimony and documentation of the medication protocols that kept Claire sedated and confused. Those could be fabricated, Mark argued desperately. Maria has had episodes like this before, believing herself to be someone else. Really? Thomas raised an eyebrow. Then perhaps you can explain why your father kept detailed journals about Claire's abduction, or why the medical examiner who falsified her death certificate received a substantial payment from a Thornton shell company. Mark's face drained of color. You're bluffing. I assure you I'm not. Thomas's voice hardened. Your father's crimes are documented, Mark. How much did you know? Were you complicit, or just a convenient tool? I never... Mark stopped, visibly gathering himself. Sheriff, I demand you remove this woman from these people's custody immediately. Whatever Sinclair claims, I have legal documents. Documents based on fraud, Dr. Reynolds interrupted, stepping forward with his own folder. Sheriff, these are my medical notes spanning 25 years, along with Walter Thornton's original instructions regarding Claire's medication and the false identity he created for her. Sheriff Davis looked at the mounting evidence, then at Claire, who met his gaze with clear, determined eyes. I'd like to speak with Ms. Parker alone, the sheriff finally said, as Claire followed the sheriff to a private corner of the porch. Mark moved closer to Thomas, his voice low and threatening. This isn't over, Sinclair. You have no idea what you're starting. It was over the moment we found Claire, Thomas replied calmly. Walk away now, Mark, while you still can. Claire's conversation with the sheriff lasted nearly 20 minutes. When they returned, Sheriff Davis addressed Mark directly. Mr. Thornton, I'm not making any arrests today, but I am taking these allegations seriously. I'm going to ask you to leave these people in peace while we investigate further. This is outrageous, Mark sputtered. I'll have your badge for this. You're welcome to contact my superiors, the sheriff replied evenly. In the meantime, I suggest you find yourself a good lawyer. This case is going to the FBI. As Mark was escorted back to his vehicle, Claire watched from the porch, supported by Thomas on one side and Olivia on the other. For the first time in 26 years, she felt the crushing weight of captivity begin to lift. He'll be back, she said quietly. With lawyers, with more papers. Let him come, Thomas replied, his arm tightening protectively around her. We have the truth on our side, and after 26 years, it's finally going to be heard. 6 months after Claire's rescue, the Sinclair Lake House buzzed with quiet activity. Spring had transformed the property, carpeting the grounds with wildflowers and filling the air with birdsong. Through the open windows, Claire could hear Olivia and Nicholas laughing as they skipped stones across the lake's surface. They've become close, Linda observed, joining Claire on the sunlit porch. Claire nodded, watching the half-siblings with wonder. It's beautiful to see. Nicholas was so angry at first. Finding out your father had a secret daughter and a lost love isn't easy for any teenager, Linda said, settling into the chair beside her sister. But he's come around. The past months had been a whirlwind of medical treatments, legal battles, and careful healing. Claire's physical health had improved steadily under Dr. Reynolds' care, her body slowly recovering from years of unnecessary medication. Her mind, too, had begun to heal, memories returning in vivid bursts that sometimes left her breathless. The legal aftermath had been equally intense. Mark Thornton now faced federal charges for continuing his father's crimes. Walter's journals, secured by Thomas's legal team, had revealed the full extent of his obsession with destroying Thomas Sinclair, an obsession that had consumed his son as well. The FBI called this morning, Claire said, turning to Linda. They need me to testify next month. Linda's expression tightened with concern. Are you ready for that? As ready as I'll ever be. Claire's hands, once perpetually trembling, were now steady as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The premature gray was growing out, revealing the dark hair of her youth. I need to look Mark in the eye, For my own healing. The screen door opened behind them as Thomas emerged from the house, cell phone in hand. That was Davidson, he said, referring to his lead attorney. Eleanor Thornton has agreed to a settlement. She'll testify against Mark in exchange for immunity. His own mother, Linda murmured. She claims she never knew the full truth about Maria, only that Walter was obsessed with keeping her isolated. After Scott's death, she became increasingly alarmed by Mark's behavior. Thomas sat on the porch railing, facing the sisters. Her testimony will make the case even stronger. Claire took a deep breath, gazing out at the lake. Will it ever really be over? Sometimes I feel like I'm still there, like this is the dream and I'll wake up back in that blue room. Thomas moved to kneel before her, taking her hands in his. You're free, Claire, and every day you become more yourself. She smiled, squeezing his hands. The connection between them had deepened over the months. Careful and tender as they rediscovered each other, Thomas had moved into the lake house temporarily, working remotely to be near Claire during her recovery. Melissa had filed for divorce, unsurprised and almost relieved to finally confront the ghost that had haunted their marriage from the beginning. I've been thinking, Claire said, her voice stronger than it had been in decades. I want to go back to Chicago. Not yet, but soon. Are you sure? Linda asked. Claire nodded. I can't hide away forever, and there's something I need to do. Visit the university where I used to study. See if any part of that Claire still exists inside me. Whatever you need, Thomas assured her. When you're ready. Claire's gaze drifted back to Olivia, now teaching Nicholas some complex stone-skipping technique. She's extraordinary, she said softly. You did that, Linda. You raised her to be strong, brilliant, compassionate. We all shaped her, Linda replied. My love, Thomas's determination that found its way into her DNA, and you, her voice broke slightly, your spirit that somehow reached her even across all those years of separation. The moment was interrupted as Olivia and Nicholas bounded up the porch steps, cheeks flushed from the spring air. Mom, Olivia began, then paused, flustered by her own word choice. Over the months, she had begun occasionally calling Claire Mom, the term emerging naturally as their bond strengthened. Claire, she corrected herself. It's okay, Claire said gently. Either is fine. Olivia nodded. Continuing, Nicholas and I were thinking about the memorial garden. We have some design ideas. The memorial garden had been Olivia's suggestion, a place to honor the years lost, without allowing them to define the future. Together, they were transforming a section of the property with flowers, sculptures, and a small reflecting pool. I'd love to see your plans, Claire said, rising smoothly from her chair. The physical therapy had worked wonders. Her movements, once hesitant and shaky, were now fluid and confident, as Olivia led the way, showing Claire and Thomas the sketches she and Nicholas had created. Linda watched from the porch, a bittersweet smile on her face. The family taking shape before her eyes was beautiful, complex, and miraculous, but it was also a reminder that her role was changing. For 25 years, she had been Olivia's mother in every way that mattered. Now, she was learning to share that sacred space with the sister she had thought lost forever. Later that evening, as the sun set over the lake, Thomas found Claire alone on the dock, her bare feet dangling in the cool water. May I join you? He asked. She patted the space beside her. Always. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky transform from blue to gold to deepening purple. Claire's recovery had taught Thomas patience, the understanding that some moments needed no words, that presence itself could be healing. I've been thinking about the future, Claire finally said, her voice peaceful. For so long, I couldn't imagine one. Now there are almost too many possibilities. What do you want? Thomas asked simply. She considered this. To know my daughter, to reclaim my name and identity, to find purpose again. She turned to look at him directly, and to see if what we had can still exist in some new form. Thomas reached into his pocket, withdrawing the small velvet box he had carried for 26 years. I've been waiting for the right moment to give this back to you, not as a proposal or a demand, but as a promise that was interrupted. Claire took the box, opening it to reveal the emerald ring. In the fading light, the stone seemed to glow with inner fire. It's exactly as I remember, she whispered, Like our connection, Thomas said. Changed by time, but essentially unchanged. She lifted the ring from its velvet nest, turning it to catch the last rays of sunlight. I'm not the same woman who wore this ring 26 years ago. And I'm not the same man who gave it to you, Thomas acknowledged. But perhaps that's the point. We've been shaped by different lives, different challenges, yet here we are, still drawn to each other. Claire slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, as if the years between had been merely a pause in their story. Not a renewal of old vows, she clarified, but a beginning, a new first chapter. Thomas nodded, understanding perfectly. A beginning, he agreed, as darkness fell over the lake. They made their way back to the house where Linda was setting the table for dinner. Olivia was explaining some complex algorithm to Nicholas, and Dr. Reynolds was preparing for his return to Chicago the following day. The family they had cobbled together from tragedy and hope. Imperfect, unconventional, and absolutely theirs. Claire paused in the doorway, the emerald ring catching the golden light from within. For 25 years, she had been Maria, a hollow shell of a woman, imprisoned in medication and lies. Before that, she had been Claire Parker, a young woman in love, her future stretching bright before her until it was violently interrupted. Now, she was becoming someone new, neither Maria nor the Claire of the past, but a woman forged through suffering, resilience, and the enduring power of love. She had lost her youth to Walter Thornton's revenge, but she would not lose her future. As she stepped into the warm light of the house, surrounded by the family that had found her against impossible odds, Claire smiled. The emerald ring on her finger wasn't just a symbol of what had been lost. It was a promise of what could still be. The ashes of her stolen life had given way to something unexpected and precious, a chance to be reborn.